That fella couldn't do anything. He couldn't even kneel to pray. And he got saved. Are you saved? That fella couldn't join the church. He couldn't join the church. He couldn't get baptized. He couldn't get baptized. He woke up with God. He woke up with the devil. Are you saved? So that fella didn't take the sacraments, didn't take the sacraments. Didn't say the rosary, didn't take the rosary. Didn't tithe, didn't tithe. He went to heaven, he went to hell. You saved? Didn't keep the law, he didn't keep the law. He broke the commandments, he broke the commandments. He didn't keep the golden rule, he didn't keep the golden rule. He woke up in glory, he woke up in the pit. Are you saved? You're saved. If you're not saved, you're over here or you're over here. You sure ain't in the middle. He said, Lord, remember me, thou comest thy kingdom. And Jesus turned to him and said, verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be saved. It's like that. You have been saved? If you ever saved, you were saved like that.
All right, in this video, I want to do some TOL, which is thinking out loud. I imagine talking about what I'm going to talk about here might get this video flagged and taken down and probably lose another channel, because whenever I talk about what I'm about to talk about, usually bad things happen, and it's usually I get silenced and censored and further shadow banned when other people are saying the same things I'm saying, and they'll say it louder and with more vigor, more conviction, and they're allowed to do it. But for some reason, if I say something similar or the exact same thing, I get punished for it. And it makes me think of two things. It makes me think of controlled opposition, where the people who are saying the things I'm about to get into, they're there and being used, right? So that's why they're allowed to say the things they're saying. I'm not controlled, so they want to, keep a lid on this, right? They don't want a grassroots kind of thing starting here. And the other thing is that I'm actually Christian. I am a gung-ho fundamentalist, KJV only, Jesus-loving Christian, gospel-preaching Christian. Are saved by faith, or saved by grace through faith, that not of ourselves, a gift of God, not of works, as any man should boast. Right? And since I am like that, and they're trying to get people like me to support a certain group and a certain people and a certain thing, they don't want people like me showing them that they can be Christian and also do the opposite of some of these things. Hopefully I have talked long enough to get past some of the stuff that the algorithm picks up, because from what I understand, they don't go through your whole video unless it's flagged by somebody else or they want to just randomly take a look at it. But if you just post a video, they'll go through the first, I don't know how many minutes, and wait to see if there's anything that flags an interest, right? Certain keywords or phrases and stuff. And then if something triggers it, it will check out everything else. Yeah. So, hopefully I passed that. I'm not sure if I have. Probably not, but I'm just hoping, And pray for me. Pray that, this gets under their radar and gets out to who it needs to get out to. But this is just thinking out loud. There might not be anything to this, okay? It's just a thought. So, the other day, I was looking at the map here, where they have Israel here, and you have the Golan Heights in this area, and then you got the Gaza West Bank, And right here would be Jerusalem. Right, and it looked kind of like this. And they showed how they took over, looked like half of what was Gaza. So now Gaza only has this, when they did have all of this area as well. And a guy from, or gal, I assume it's a guy, from South Africa was saying that there was a bunch of wealthy immigrants coming over from Gaza to South Africa, and the people were upset because they're not even taking care of the people there. They're having all kinds of issues. And I was like, oh, wow. And I don't know the whole detail about that. You know, it just gave me a little bit of a heads up about stuff going on there. So I was thinking about that, and I saw this. And then I saw today that the UN is going to vote on something concerning this situation, right? And when I saw that, I was thinking, I remember people talking about when they want to take the land and they want to divide it. That's when God is going to intervene, right? And it made me think. Right? Because there's some more land over here, you know, next to where like Jordan is and what have you, that is still considered part of what they're calling Palestine, right? We'll just shade it in because it's like split, right? And I was thinking about this, and hear me out on this. The people here in this land that are calling themselves this, they're using a flag that has to do with the star, not of David. There is no such thing. But in the Bible, there's a star of Rephaim, which has to do with Saturn or Satan. And in the scriptures, we also learn about this group called the Synagogue of Satan. People who say they are Jews, but they're not. Right? And, you know, all these things are popping up into my mind. You know, I'm just thinking out loud. You know, I'm not making any claims or any facts being declared here. Right? And I was thinking about this, that this people here claim to be God's people. I'm not saying they're not, right? As far as we are concerned, they are, right? But they openly reject Jesus, right? Their own Messiah, they don't want him, right? And they want to build the third temple. And I believe that's a sign that the rapture is about to happen, right? When they either announce they're going to build it, or they start building it, or when they finish building it, I think right around that time, that's when we're going to go. Because that's why I believe Paul thought the rapture could happen in his day, because Israel was in the land. They had control of Jerusalem. They were occupied, but they had the temple. Everything was set up. Right? You had Israel mixed with Rome, iron and clay mixed. It was all set to happen. But then Israel was taken out. So we have this grace period of 2,000 years. And then Israel is back. But we're told with this fig tree that comes back, it's going to produce leaves but not fruit. Right? It says leaves. And it's going to openly be in rebellion against God as it offered up a red heifer sacrifice, and it's probably going to do 2 or 3 more there. And they're going to be in further rebellion as they're going to rebuild their temple when God's temple is a spiritual temple now, made up of the true believers that he actually dwells in, like he dwelt in the temple. Because he doesn't dwell in temples made by man's hands. He was just using it as an example to help us understand, as a type. And then they're going to start offering up animal sacrifices, and a lot of it obviously for their sins, right? Which is an open rejection of Jesus, right? So this group here that's doing all this, again, against him. And they're pushing for Noahide laws. Noahide laws are not necessarily evil, other than one of them is about idolatry. And they say that worshiping Jesus as God, a man, as they just see him as a man, not the physical body that God came in, they see him as just a man. So if you worship him, you're an idolater. Even though Jesus is their God. Yod He Vav He, our salvation. That's what his name means, right? The name of their God is Yod He Vav He, right? And so were all these things coming to my mind, I was thinking, what about the people that make up these other groups around Israel, the land that they're taking around them, like Gaza and stuff, such things like that. And I was like, well, we think of Muslims, right? But there's also some, maybe not a whole lot, but there's some Jews among them. But there's also a lot of Christians, right? And the Christians seem to be persecuted by both sides, right? By the Muslims and by the Jews. And they try to appeal to the Jews for some help against the Muslims because, the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing. But, Israel would only help out because they want to deal with the bigger problem in their area, which would be Muslims. At least I would imagine they look at them as the bigger problem. And I was thinking about that. The people who are suffering here and being pushed out, a lot of them are actually ethnically Jewish. They might not be religiously Jewish, right? But ethnically they are, from the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I thought that was interesting. I thought it was interesting because what if what we're doing is actually supporting the opposite, right? We're supporting the opposite, and as they're taking more and more of the land of the people around them, because we're saying, hey, they're God's chosen people. When my whole point of view was saying, hey, you're God's chosen people, wait for your Messiah to come and take the land for you. Which is what a lot of Orthodox Jews actually protest against, is the Zionism. They protest against it, saying, hey, the Messiah is going to come and he's going to conquer the land. What you're doing here is just creating what we call anti-Semitism, right? But they seem to be intentionally trying to create that, to create some kind of chaotic scenario here and pit people on sides to get people to start fighting against each other. But I was seeing, they're taking more land and they're making a vote about basically taking the land. And then the Christians were saying, when they take a vote to say about dividing the land, that's when Jesus is going to start to, call his people up and he's going to return, right? And they act as though, hey, if they decide to side with something like Gaza or Palestine, where I'm not saying they're the good guys in any way whatsoever. I'm not supporting Hamas, right? I'm not supporting them at all, right? And what they're doing. But what if we still got it wrong? And when they keep taking away the land from these people, if they vote to say yes, that's what they're doing. They're taking away the land he gave these people and giving it to this synagogue of Satan. And maybe this might not be the trigger of when it actually happens, but what if they keep pushing forward and they take all of this right here? So if I can just bring up the eraser so that they just take it all. So they don't have that anymore. It all belongs to quote unquote Israel. And then they take all this as well, so that there is no more Palestine, Gaza. This area is all Israel. What if they do that? And they have this and they start building the temple. I would think that might be when God says, hey, you took the land I gave these people and you took all of it. And that's when he comes. And this whole time we've been supporting it and pushing it along and even praying for it. What if we were on the wrong side? I'm not saying we are. Right? Because you got to keep in mind, with the side of like Gaza, Palestine, there's a lot of mix, right? Because we think of Muslims and Hamas and all the evil they're doing, right? But they're not all part of Hamas. They're not all part of Islam. Like I said, a lot of them are actually Christian. Few of them are Jews, and ethnically they are Jewish. Right? So, you got these people who are coming from some other place, mainly from Europe, some from Asiatic areas like Russia, Kazakhstan, right? And they're saying they are Israel, and they got this homeland here. What if, they're fulfilling prophecy, but we got it wrong, right? We got it wrong. Because think of this. For example, Tel Aviv is the gay capital of the world, for example. Right? I mean, that's against the Torah. That's against what God said. That's against Christian values as well, right? Yet it's openly okay. And they have a big problem in Israel as well with, let's put it backwards, this kind of trafficking of ladies, especially blonde ladies. They get them to have a free trip to Israel to check out these different places, and then they get them caught up into brothels and stuff, prostitution, and say they have to pay for their ticket that got here and to get them back and all this stuff and get them all caught up into this, right? And they mess up their lives and use them and abuse them, and it's a big problem, right? So these people are not innocent. Both sides are definitely not innocent. It's like, I understand people who just want to stay back, like myself. I'm not, you don't want to choose a side. But there's times I think about this, and I'm like, I think we might have it wrong. Because ultimately, in the end, I think Jerusalem is going to unite with the UN at the end of World War III, or whatever is about to happen here. And that's going to be the headquarters of the UN, or whatever they're going to call it at the time. A new version of the League of Nations and United Nations and what have you. And Jerusalem is going to be headquarters of the world. And Israel as a state, as a nation, is going to be the head of the world. Kind of like how America seems to be right now, but is falling. Right? And I believe that's going to be why it's called Babylon. It's confusion. It's the iron and clay mixed. But the reason why it's mixed is because the clay that is mixing with it, Israel, is apostate. And we're actually supporting it and praying for this to happen. Maybe we're, in a way, hey, yeah, let's do that so that Jesus comes back. But at the same time, God's going to judge us as Christians. Not that we got to worry about losing our salvation. But think about that. Just imagine, God's point of view. Do you think that's the right thing for us to be doing? I'm not going to say if it is or isn't, but it's definitely something to think about. Right? Definitely something to think about. Definitely something to think about. Because something's definitely weird here. Definitely something a little off. But all in all, if they start building that temple, I think that's when we know it's very soon. Right? I think it's very soon because they could start building it at any time. But until then, we might not go. Right? I think that is one of the main things you should be watching for. We see a lot of things going on in the world that we know it's soon. But until then, I think we should just be patiently watching. I could be wrong on this, but because ultimately we could be taken up, war happens, and then they start building the temple when they bring about, a new peace, right? When that happens, that's how it could work out. We could be taken up right before this big war, which makes a whole lot of sense. But at the same time, we read about the second temple being built, and it was built in troublous times where they had to have a sword in one hand while they had their tools in the other, right? So they could start building it during war. So I think when they start building it, just like when they announced they had the red heifers and they were going to sacrifice the red heifers, all of a sudden that event happened a year or two ago on, October 7th? I think it was a couple years now. That happened, and they said it was because they were going to sacrifice the red heifers. They were going to build the third temple. So if they actually start building it, the people are going to be fighting against it, just like the time they tried to build it the second time, right? So I think that's very key to be watching for and should be our focal point as Christians when it comes to watching for the rapture. Because the end time events can't happen without that temple. Right? And even though it's being built and there might be some trouble going on, right? That does not mean that we might not be here until it's completely finished either, right? Because the Christians in Paul's day, they thought, hey, those of us that are alive and remain will be caught up with them, right? So the temple was built, everything was set, but they were still there, right? They were still there. So that's just something to think about. But anyway, that is that. Hopefully I don't get flagged for this because it wasn't in support of, these people, just blind support of them. Without question, without any criticism, yeah. I'll go to the splice. Alright, it's the end of the video. And I figured I would do an ending segment to my video so I don't have to keep repeating myself. But I do want to remind you to do what Isaiah said to do and seek out the book of the Lord and read it, putting line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, doing what Paul said, and studying the word, showing yourself approved unto God, rightly dividing the word of truth. And if you read English, that would be the KJV. And then do what John has Jesus recorded telling the church of Philadelphia, and keep his word, preserve it, protect it, hide it in your hearts, and not deny his name. And then Jesus will never be able to tell you do err not knowing the scriptures, and he'll keep you from the hour of temptation, which is going to come upon all those that dwell upon the earth here shortly. And with that being said, I'd like to ask you for your support. You watching the video all the way to the end helps out a lot, but if you could like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, share the video, share the channel, interact in the comments section. These things help out a lot, especially with people telling me that their likes are not being registered, that they get unsubscribed, and all kinds of other ways being shadow banned. Your help in this way was greatly appreciated. And if you're able to give me a little bit more time and pray to our Heavenly Father that he keeps this ministry going and he uses it to reach those who he wants to reach, to get the truth out to the world, to make it a bright light, and to feed his sheep, to feed his children, even to bring forth more children, and that he would watch over all of us, his born-again believers, and take care of us, provide for us, and protect us, even after he comes and gets us, which looks like it's going to be real soon. And just to amen in Jesus' name to that should be all we need. But if you could help out some more, I know times are rough and they look like they're getting rougher, but if you're able to support financially, there's a few ways you can do so in the info description box, such as PayPal, Venmo, and there's a couple other ways you can support if you so choose to do so, which would make sure I can keep this ministry going longer than the foreseeable future, because this kind of support has been drying up there. It's pretty much non-existent lately. So if you could help out in that way, it would be greatly appreciated to make sure I can keep doing this. But if you could at least pray, I know God will provide. And sometimes it's a change of ministry, so maybe it won't be a ministry online anymore. But hey, if you want to keep seeing this stuff, pray. And with all that being said, thank you so much again for your time and attention, for watching this video all the way through. I appreciate it. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one, and may God bless you and yours.